Awesome, awesome. Okay, we'll give people maybe another minute or two to get in here. Okay, Satoshi's recording. And Satoshi, do we have video for this one? I know you mentioned it last time. Oh yeah, I can just press a button. Awesome, cool. We have video.
420 for a log or two. Well, then again, we do get a bonus for having a variety of different stuff.
Kelsey, I don't think you're muted.
Sorry about that.
You're fine. I was like, whoa, Chelsea's a dude? It's funny. Cool. Let's see, we got, 6 people in here? Most of them are teams, so we'll wait another second. Get any last minute people. I'm excited we have our artists in here today, though. That's awesome. Minus Sandra, the one who did the art for tomorrow is not here. I'm sure. I think it's probably nighttime for her right now.
Yeah, she's taking a much deserved break.
No kidding. She's worked very hard. Okay. Cool. I'd say we're good to get started. We have a question pending in the AMA chat, so we can go ahead and get to that now while we wait to see if we've got any more people joining. I'm surprised we have pretty low activity on weekends. Weekdays are good and mornings are good for us, but overall, our community is not online a whole lot during the weekend. It's interesting. Crypto Raiders, I feel like, is the opposite. We see a lot of activity there over the weekends, so it's pretty funny. I would have guessed that more people would be around on weekends than weekdays, but we seem to be the opposite. Okay, cool. Well, we'll get right into it. I'll go ahead and answer PKT's question, and then I'll pass it over to Devesa and to Chelsea to see if you guys have anything that you want to talk about. Devesa, maybe walk through the art process a little bit, and then Chelsea, maybe you could talk about how you receive the concept art and help make it even more beautiful. So we'll get to that in a minute. But first, we'll do PKT's question. Seems like he's asleep, but he's going to watch the recording in the morning. So good morning, PKT, when you see this. Okay, so we got some mint questions. Are you concerned at all that with the new mint cap, the champions will be concentrated in too few hands? Do you see a scenario in which whales might mint so many batches of 20 that the community won't get to mint as much as they want? Have something like a range of 3 to 5 in mind. No, I think we'll be okay. We don't have enough people whitelisted to encounter that problem. We're pretty careful about that. We didn't really want to get over like that 2,000 range. Our expectation is that most people are going to mint like 1 or 2. A really good chunk of the whitelist is from like collaborations and stuff. So things that were hosted in other Discords. Those people have like probably slightly lower buy into the project than like you guys do, who have been here for all the AMAs and stuff. So I think we have a really good balance there. I am interested to see how it goes, but we have reserved a little bit for public explicitly. So we're going to be rocking 7,777 for the private, the whitelist mint, and then we're reserving any excess, so a minimum of 2,222 for the public mint to make sure that we don't have it all concentrated in the private mint. We want to be able to bring in some new people as the word gets out over the course of the next few days, and people see that in the just in the community. And then question number 2. According to Discord events, you guys rescheduled for highest daily gas timing possible. Why? See table. Let's see. Oh, interesting. I can look into that. I don't think that it'll be an issue, but I'll talk with our smart contract developer and make sure that we're aware of this. Those numbers look pretty pumped, so I'm interested to see what exactly causes those and why it's like that. I'd be interested to know what the timeline is on this map as well, to see if this was like the past week or if there was an event that caused it. Also, as a reminder, I think you guys join unmuted by default, so be sure that you're muted unless you do have a question you want to bring it up for everybody. Okay, and then you said, P.S. It's like Christmas morning to wake up to a Monster Champions AMA and find it on YouTube. So happy to bring that to you as well tomorrow. Okay, we also have a question from Sewer Monkey. Will eggs be airdropped to per Genesis NFT held or per wallet? They will be based on Genesis champions held. So you will receive an airdrop for every champion that you own to your wallet, as opposed to just one like per wallet. So this means that if you own multiple champions, you'll receive multiple drops, as opposed to the other way around. Okay, those are our 2 pending AMA questions. So now I'll pass it over to Devesa. You can talk a little bit about the concepting process that you go through with the monsters. I think people would be interested to kind of hear your thought process on that, and how we've ended up with such beautiful creations that we have now in the sneak peek channel and beyond.
Okay. So basically, well, between everyone, we try and have a few ideas for monsters. Some animals, like for example, with the water, we have the animal and also the element. And from there, I try to think what other quality we could put for it. For example, that one, I tried not to have just Oshawott from Pokemon. We had the theme of an otter and the shells. We had to think of a new concept, something a bit more different. So it wasn't just a copy. So we thought of the concept of islanders, kind of like in Moana. And so from then on, the design just gets done easily. I looked for some references and other designs, like for example, Mink Stash. I love the name. So that one was a bit complicated at first. We just had the animal, a weasel, and the element fire. So we were quite some time thinking how we can make this interesting. We looked into the animal, what does it do? And we found that it steals eggs, for example, in chicken farms. So I turned it kind of like typical Japanese thief, where they have like the something wrapped around like a blanket or whatever wrapped around their head. While sketching kind of looked like a mustache, I thought it looked funny having a fire mustache. And so the name actually came from there afterwards. And also a lot of times we think of monsters that could have some kind of relationship between each other. So I'm not going to spoil some that you'll see in the future. But for example, with Mink Stash, we have a chicken monster that will reveal in the future. Mink Stash will steal eggs from that one. Or for example, with Infernoso, it's a fire bear. First came Infernoso, and we thought of the lava honey idea. And from then on, we thought, well, we could also do a bee that does the lava honey. It could be another monster, so it's more of a relationship with all the monsters within the world. That's about it, really.
Yeah, and I think that's really good to mention. We've gotten a lot of compliments on, the art for these, not just because it's good art, but because the concepts are really awesome. And I think that's a testament to you guys in the design process that we go through as a team to create these. I mean, there are a lot of connections between different monsters. And kind of like you mentioned at the start of that, our very first question with each one is, okay, like, how do we make this lovable, but not make it too like reminiscent of other things people are familiar with? Like with the otter, like, how do we make sure that we distinguish from Pokemon? Because otters aren't as like flashy of an animal. So having that simple design to lean on is like kind of tricky if you're trying to differentiate a little bit. So I think that one in particular, like you really knocked it out of the park by creating like that kind of islander theme to it. It's really cool. But yeah, I think if people get a glimpse into like our internal process behind creating these, they'd be really surprised at kind of the thought process that goes into it. It's really fun. And we hope to involve the community in that in the future as well. We want you guys to make requests for monsters and things that you want to see. We've had a couple already that have been inspired by the community, like the pangolin. So yeah. And then Chelsea, do you want to talk a little bit about your side of things as well?
Yeah, I'd just like to say, first of all, that I've been really impressed with Device's concepts, and I've really enjoyed how kind of organic the creation of them has been. Like, it's almost a creature that you could imagine living in this world and living in the wild, and thinking about what do they eat, where do they live, how do they live, that sort of stuff has been really refreshing, because I feel like some games or possibly NFTs that come up with these designs don't always put that much thought and care into the particular animals, because there are so many. It's easy to just kind of brush each one aside and be like, well, it just needs to look like a kangaroo. Whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Looks like a kangaroo. So you'll notice, like, none of our monsters have anything on them that like wouldn't be something that they could find in the wild. Not something that they would make themselves if they can't make themselves. So nothing man-made. None of them are holding swords or shields or anything. Like, none of them are wearing armor that isn't natural to their being. So I really enjoyed that component of these concepts. But what I do mostly is I take Devessa's lovely concepts and I take them into Illustrator, and I make them into the vector art that it ends up being the final art. And that was a little bit of a learning process in the beginning, just because we weren't quite sure at first whether we wanted to do raster graphics or vector graphics. So we had to kind of figure out what were the needs of the game, and I think relatively quickly we figured out that we wanted to do vector graphics just because they are so scalable. You can export them out at basically any size you want, which is very convenient if you're making a game and you need multiple sizes. So I usually talk with Devessa. He sometimes gives me color sketches of the designs to just kind of help out with color if he has something specific in mind. And then it's just the process of colorizing them and making the shapes and the designs, and coming up with some constants for the designs, like the fire. How are we going to represent fire? That was something that I think we had to figure out along the way a little bit. So you'll notice that Embark's fire actually looks a little bit different than, say, Waxalotl's fire or Flamequin's fire, just because Embark was actually basically one of the first ones that we did. So we hadn't quite nailed down the design yet for the fire and didn't have that consistent quite yet, but we might actually go back and tweak that to update Embark a little bit. But yeah, just going through the process like that, and it's been getting quicker as we've been going on, just because we've kind of already figured some of this stuff out, how the fire is going to look, how, the different elemental colors that we're going to use. Like, all the waters are kind of the bluish color, all the darks are kind of this purple hue, stuff like that. So it's been a really fun learning process, and it's been really helpful having multiple artists there to kind of give feedback too, because teamwork makes the dream work. So it's been a great experience so far.
Yeah, definitely. And I love, touched on it earlier and you touched on it as well. Like, I love the fact that so many of the things that we've done are like a team effort, like a collaborative effort between all of us. Obviously mostly you guys, because you guys are the ones that actually make it happen. But being able to like talk about that as a team and come up with those ideas, and, as painful as it might be for you guys sometimes, like making those revisions, is really fun. And I think that's how we've ended up with, kind of this like very special art that we have, is just working as a team and having that collaborative process. And sure. Yeah, I mean, you guys have been great. So thank you to you guys for that. And we really look forward to getting those monsters out as well. I know people are really anxious to start owning them, and so we can't wait to get them rolled out and for everyone to see the full art on these. For those of you guys who don't know, every monster has an evolution, and those are almost entirely unrevealed. So we have not been putting those out very frequently. Maybe like small leaks here and there, but you guys are going to be absolutely blown away when you see like the next level that all of these monsters turn into. It's actually crazy. Devesa and Chelsea Chelsea, I don't know how to pronounce your like actual username on here. Can you enlighten me?
It's a Japanese from a long time ago. It's Aoi Ryu.
Okay. That's
Yeah.
about how I imagined it.
It means blue dragon. I'm sorry. It's
cool.
one of those things from high school that just kind of stuck with me.
That's all right. That's all right. I like it. No, I'm on board with that. We actually, so Zach and I, we co-founded Blue Red Labs, and that's actually comes from an old like gamer tag I had in high school, which is Blue Red Fire, which I actually purchased from a Japanese dude. So we have a little bit of accidental Japanese synergy on the blue there. And then lastly, to kind of wrap up our art discussion, I think Zach's probably going to be mad at me for this, but I'm going to leak our divines. It's our collection of 10 one-of-one champions that we're going to be having in the Genesis Mint. I'm really excited about these, one, because they look insane, but also because it was probably our best example of a collaborative effort with all of our artists. So Sandra is our champion artist, and she's worked incredibly hard on all the champion features. But we actually collaborated with all three of our artists to make this set of 10. So there's a little bit of influence from everyone in these, and it's really special to me, and I can't wait for people to get these as well. So I'm putting these in the chat right now. Don't take them and go make your own NFT collection and rip people off. We will find you. But yeah, it's being insanely slow to upload, but you guys are going to be glad once you get to see them. Okay. So it looks like a little bit more about Genesis Champion utility. I know that's what most people want to hear about right now with the mint coming up. It looks like the champions are finally uploaded. Yeah, there we go.
So much fun.
Those are 10.
By the way.
Yeah, you guys were awesome. You guys watched Sandra do most of her champion art the whole time, and then when the time came to kind of collaborate and make these together, you guys took that opportunity and really made these cool.
It was our opportunity to like just let loose and like make something super epic.
Yeah, and these are crazy. I'm so excited for these. But yeah, reveal day is going to be nuts. I hope that I don't get one of these because I'm not going to know what to do with it. I'm going to have to like sell it and like give it away to someone in the community. Cause you can't have a founder with one of these, but man, these are going to be awesome. But yeah, so we'll get into utility on these a little bit, to see if anyone's got any questions in the meantime. But one thing I was discussing with Zach today is, we want to make sure you guys know that Genesis champions are going to be like incredibly sacred in our community. So essentially what that means to us is that we're bringing you guys value wherever we can, but also you guys bring us a lot of value as Genesis champion holders. So we're going to be getting a lot of like feedback from you guys specifically.
Monster I'm minting tomorrow.
I'm sorry. Oh, I think you're unmuted on accident. But yeah, so essentially, we're going to use these as an opportunity to involve you guys wherever possible. Genesis champions are going to be kind of our gateway to the community. So anytime we want to roll out new content, roll out new mechanics, we're going to be calling on you guys to help us with that. So whether it's like beta testing for new components in the game, or even like the pre-release of the game, like the alpha testing, that's exclusive to Genesis champion holders. But on top of that, since we're live shipping this game, there's going to be a lot of content that's added as we go. Genesis champion holders are going to be the first participants in that. So if we're introducing something new to the economy, you guys are going to be the first ones to receive it. a lot of the times that's going to look like an airdrop. Sometimes it'll even be like in-game content directly. And so there's just like this whole spectrum of things that we can use those Genesis champions for. But most importantly, like we see this as like a VIP list. This is our like core community, the people that were with us from the start. That really believed in the project before we even had a game going, before we have the, like the crazy animations and the visuals to bring in just like the average person that's looking from the outside. So you guys are like our confidants, our inside people. But yeah, we're really excited to get into that phase where we can start providing like hard value with the airdrops and with the content. Most importantly, like you'll be getting those monster eggs soon. And then if we ever introduce like new components to the economy, there's a lot of questions about land. So land does fall under this category. But a lot of things other than that too. Like if we're having a new currency or a new in-game item, that's always going to be made available to Genesis champion holders first. In addition to just, really appreciating you guys for being a part of that, it's also a really good way for us to do a phased rollout of things. So we know that at any given point of time, there's going to be a maximum of 10,000 Genesis champions out there. So if we're rolling out new content and we need it to be like a feeler scenario where it's going to have an economic impact, that sample size of 10,000 is like the perfect way for us to kind of test those waters. So just something to keep in mind moving forward. You guys are going to see some unique opportunities through this. And that's one thing that we have kind of in the forefront of our mind, is it's a really good controlled environment to start rolling things out. Looks like we do have a few more questions, so we can get to those as well. Feel free to ask any more questions about champions, utility, stuff like that. But I also don't want to be up here talking in circles. Okay, we have a question from Atrix. Why is our game going to be more enjoyable than what seems to be like a growing set of analogous monster fight monster Pokemon-ish games? That's a good question. We've already seen a couple of these in the NFT space where it's just like a battle simulator. And that's cool. I think people have a lot of fun with that. But that's not, to me, a game. It doesn't have any progression, and it doesn't have any sense of achievement other than just beating someone in a battle. I think one thing that's really important is progression. So we're going to have like progression-based checkpoints in the game with rewards tied to them that help people feel that satisfaction as they progress through and as they get better at the game. One thing that we've talked a lot about long term is kind of creating that like purpose greater than yourself within the game. So having community, having first PvP where you have the opportunity to be better than someone else, but even more importantly, having guilds and guild versus guild where you have opportunities to be with a group of like-minded people fighting against other groups of people and just being better than them. That's, to me, that's what gaming is about, is coming together with groups and finding ways to win, developing strategies together. That's where I personally have had the most fun in games, and so that's going to be one of our highest priorities with Monster Champions, is creating that thorough guild component where you have like a very like valuable social aspect to the game. It's going to be a lot more than just monster fight monster. It's going to be team fight team. You're going to build friends through this game. We've talked about that a lot too. Some of the best connections that I've built in my life have been with guild members in games that I've played in the past, or even just random people I've come across. I may not have even been that tight with them in the actual like game sense, but just had a really good connection through that. I think those are experiences that we have at the top of our list that other games maybe don't, or at least that I've seen them not do. We have a question from Crash and Burn as well. Appreciate you guys showing up, by the way. Crash and Burn and Atrix, you guys have been here a lot lately, and it's really nice to see familiar faces rolling through. It makes it, new faces are always fun, but seeing repeated faces are really nice as well. We've seen a lot of that this week with the Genesis Champion Mint coming up, and it's been fun. Okay, question. Do you guys have plans to continue creating more and more monsters, or do you guys have this capped at a specific number? Looks like this is a multi-part question, so we're going to talk about that first. We will be creating more and more monsters. So monsters are going to be in variable supply, so it's not like a supply issue if we're creating more monsters. The fixed supply component is going to be for the variant monsters. So when a monster gains a variant form, those variant forms will be made available up to 100 total. So for any given monster, there'll be a maximum of 100 variants of that monster ever in supply. And so, yeah, we definitely plan to expand the monster roster. But you can view that as like a non NFT component. So there'll be NFT monsters. Like the monsters will be NFTs, but they're not going to be in that like limited supply sense. That's going to be for like an alternate mechanic, if that makes sense. Let me know if that answered your question with regards to that, or if you have like specific concerns with adding new monsters that you want answered. Is there an exact number of keys that each holder will get? So keys will be emitted like kind of over time. So that's going to be our way to enable people to get their monsters on chain. So monsters that aren't airdropped will be inherently off chain. So if you discover one in game, it begins off chain, and keys give you the ability to move it over. So I'll segue into the second part of your question as well. So do you want to only use your keys to bring the best ones on chain? We're going to make sure that Genesis champion holders get enough keys to not even like worry about it. We don't want you guys to have to think twice about like, do I bring this on chain or leave it off chain? It's really important to us that you guys have the ability to bring them all on chain, whether you want to sell them or not. We are a Web3 game, and we do want to have assets on chain as often as possible when it makes sense. So giving you guys the ability to use those whenever you want is going to be really valuable to us. In addition to that, we're going to have opportunities for you guys to distribute your keys to other people. So for example, if the key rate for like free to play is going to be pretty low, but if there's a free to play player who has a connection with you or a connection with someone else, you'll have ways to like get more keys to them so that they can be a more active participant in the economy. By doing that, we help you guys create connections. We help free to play players, not be so left out, but we also retain like the integrity of the key system. And we're not just like completely diluting the on-chain pool by distributing those heavily to everyone. So you guys in general are going to be kind of the gatekeepers, ironically, with that key system and helping like manage that in the community. Another question from Atrix. Sounds like there's a maximum of 10k Genesis champions. Can you elaborate on the supply of non-Genesis champions? Sure. We haven't talked about that in a while, actually. The non-Genesis ones haven't come up very much. What I've explained those like to most people as is it's just a placeholder. So you can think about them as just like a blank slate, a blank piece of paper. So they're going to be standard like humans. We'll probably call them champions, but they're not going to be like elemental champions. So they won't have like that in-game value that a Genesis champion has. So Genesis champions have that elemental affinity, and that's what increases the strength of your monsters based on the element. So that's kind of where we're bringing that value to Genesis champions with the in-game component. As a result, the regular champions are just going to be infinite in supply. They don't do anything. You could think of them as like literally any other like standard asset in a game. They would have no value. We're going to give people the opportunity to mint theirs if they want. It's going to be an entirely separate collection, and that'll be on Polygon. So it won't interact with like the Genesis champion set at all. We're not even entirely sure if we'll let people mint them, but we think it overall would make sense, especially as we bring Web 2 people into the game. If they want to mint their champion and have that be like their entryway into Web 3, we think it'd be really fun. And we also want to be able to give people like a little basic PFP to use if they're a non-Genesis champion holder. It'll be so in terms of like visual characteristics, they'll have like a couple basic clothing options, couple hair options. They'll be very like evidently different from the Genesis champion collection. Even if it's like a low trait Genesis champion, it'll still have like very clear differences. Can you elaborate on how monsters get the variant traits? Are those only Genesis monsters or any of them? Yeah, so basically it's going to be luck based. So monsters, when you like spawn them, so when you hatch the egg, it'll have a chance to be a variant. This will only apply if you use a key on your egg prior to hatching it. So to walk you kind of through that scenario, let's say you're playing the game, you discover an egg. That egg goes to your inventory. When you go to hatch that egg, it'll turn into a monster. In order to have a chance at a variant monster, you have to use the key on it before you open the egg. Keys bring your assets on chain. So what this does is your monster is hatched on chain from the start. This is a way that we can incentivize people to keep their monsters on chain as much as possible to stay true to being a Web3 game. In addition to doing that, that helps us gate the variant monsters to on-chain only. That's particularly important when you get into limited supply and scarcity, because if it's on-chain, we can 100% verify that that is a, whatever number out of 100 copy of that monster, and we can guarantee that no further copies of that monster will be created. That's one benefit that having those on-chain gives us, and so we want to make sure that we utilize that. And then are keys NFTs in itself or an in-game item? So as it stands currently, keys will be an in-game item. We may add functionality to bridge keys like on-chain later to allow for more flexible trading, but right now they're going to be an in-game item. Kind of circling back to what I mentioned at the start of the call, Genesis champions are going to be our gateway for introducing things into the economy. We're going to be really careful about what we do and don't introduce to our economy, especially with regards to on-chain and off-chain. Once you make something tradable, there's not really any going back on that. It can inflate very, very quickly. So having those keys off-chain at first allows us to kind of regulate that trading value a little bit. And then if we determine that there's a need to bring them on-chain, we can do that. Doing the reverse is a lot harder, and it's a lot less fun for the community. If you take a feature away from someone, it's not fun for anybody. And we don't want to have to do it as developers either. So that's kind of our way to make sure we feel it out and establish an economy before we release something into it. And then also to elaborate regarding the question after that, the key system is essentially how you're going to bridge your assets from off-chain to on-chain, primarily your monsters, but there could be other in-game assets that we allow you to bring on-chain with those as well. Runes are another example where those are going to be inherently off-chain, and we don't currently have plans to ever make them independently tradable of your monster. But if we do determine down the road that there is like room for that we think it would not hurt the economy, then keys allow us to kind of make that transition.
Excuse me. No, go put it in the garbage. That is not okay.
Please make sure you guys are muted if you can. This is one downside of having video calls, is I think everyone has the ability to speak. Okay, let's see. But also make sure they throw it in the garbage. It sounds like something that they should not have right now. Okay, kind of glancing through these, making sure I don't miss any. Yes, price is still fixed at 0.069. ETH pumped a little bit and then went a little bit back down. We had actually set that price at 0.069 months ago when ETH was at this value. So we're planning on keeping it. Question from Nikolai, did we discuss tokens yet? Not heavily in this call, or really heavily in any call, I don't think. Yeah, tokens are going to be really well integrated into the game. We're going to have a ton of syncs within the game. Most of them are going to be for min-maxing components. They're not going to be detrimental to basic gameplay, but for competitive gameplay, we want to have those syncs in there. So that'll be tied to like maximum enhancements to your runes, final upgrades on your monsters, and then unlocking like special upgrade opportunities as well. We're being pretty careful to balance that to make sure that it doesn't completely break the game. But ultimately, we really want to favor the economy in this. And by doing that, we're going to have a lot of heavy sinks for tokens. And those are going to come in kind of like phased rollouts. So at the start, you'll have token sinks for rune upgrades, monster upgrades. And then when we get later into gameplay, you're going to have like PvP sinks. And then late gameplay, that's where you're looking at guild versus guild syncs. You're using tokens to overcome other guilds, not in just like a buyout war, but more in terms of refilling your attacks to make sure that you're giving your team the most opportunities to beat the opponent. Sometimes it'll take multiple hits to defeat someone. We can get into that more once we have like that guild structure rolling out, and we can give you guys a better idea of what it's going to look like. And then lastly, global bosses are going to be a really heavy sync too. You'll fight global bosses for potential token rewards, item rewards, monsters, stuff of that nature. So by having that integrated into the game, we create like another really good sync with like ranking based value attributed to it and rewards for it as well. And then in terms of like the DeFi side of tokens, we're going to have 2 LPs. So Nat's, you're probably aware of this by now, but Nat is setting all of that up for us. He's really good at what he does, so we're thankful to have him on board for it. But yeah, 2 LPs, a little bit less than the LP count for Crypto Raiders, and then you'll have the opportunity to stake the value token in order to earn the game token. And so the game token is cents, the value token is Mons. So you'll stake Mons to earn cents, and then the game will have heavy sinks for cents throughout. Another question from Atrix. How does the team intend to make most of their revenue? Marketplace fees, additional mints, breeding type mechanics, in-game spending. And then noted that this is your last question, but you would like for everyone to hear this type of answer. I agree. I think this is a really good question. And it's one that I feel like plagues a lot of teams because they're like, oh, we'll just make revenue off tokens, but you're not supposed to be cashing your tokens out all the time. Like, it's not a good look. So marketplace fees is a big one. We're actually going to have our own marketplace, our in-house marketplace, and we're going to be rolling that out really, really soon. Like, within the next few weeks soon, after Genesis Champion Mint, but sometime during the monster airdrops. So we will have our in-house marketplace available to buy, sell, trade monsters before the game is even released. It's not like a necessity. Like, you don't need that marketplace to trade before the game is out or anything, but we want to give you guys that opportunity. It'll have lower fees than what you'll be paying on OpenSea. And that like directly benefits the team instead of having to split value with OpenSea there as well. So secondary is going to be really good for us. We're also talking about having the Web 2 component involve microtransactions. So for Web 2 players that are non-economic participants, we're probably going to have like standard microtransaction syncs. However, those are going to be like heavily upcharged compared to the on-chain, like you call it a parallel, I guess. So like, for example, if there's an on-chain energy refill that involves the game token, we could have a Web 2 counterpart that involves just straight up like USD, but it would be priced at a heavy premium. So it's incredibly inefficient to play the game off-chain and competitive. As a casual player, it wouldn't impact you much, but if you're trying to play highly competitive, basically off-chain players are going to kind of be looking at that on-chain component as a ticket to cheaper transactions, more profitability, opportunity to advance further in the game. And that's actually one way that we hope to onboard people into Web3 is by creating a Web 2 component that parallels the Web 3 stuff just less efficiently. So as a Web 2 player, you're kind of always wondering like, wow, like I could actually have better opportunities if I play this game on chain and learn how that works. Let me know if that kind of answers that question. But yeah, those are going to be like major ones for us. Another question from Crash and Burn. Will all of the airdropped eggs that you get prior to the game be on chain? Yes. So any airdropped eggs will be inherently on chain. That's by design, and that's another benefit of Genesis Champions is anytime we want to do an egg airdrop, like for example, if we have egg emission rates really low in the game, we can always correct that by having like an egg airdrop to Genesis Champion holders. So anytime that we're doing any sort of balancing, increase, that type of thing, Genesis Champion holders are the ones that are going to reap the benefits of it. primarily with those airdropped eggs. So they'll be immediately on chain. That way you can immediately, buy, sell, trade with them, however you want. We asked before looking at a release date on tokens far after initial mint. Yeah, so it'll be pretty soon after initial mint. We have a timeline that we posted a little while ago. I think it's a good ways back in the AMA channel. I'm going to look in the drive to see if I have that handy on this computer. But essentially, we're planning token release between the first monster airdrop and the last monster airdrop. So we'll have Genesis Champion mint, and then you'll have the first egg airdrop. After that, prior to the final egg airdrop, we'll be rolling out our token. And then following the final egg airdrop, we'll be rolling out the game. And Kelsey made like a great graphic for this, so I think it'd be good if I could find it for you guys. Yeah, here we go. This hurts to look at because it has our old mint date. Makes me sad, but that's okay. We have overcome OpenSea's challenges. And for those of you who didn't see the announcement, OpenSea has fixed their issues with that. So it's properly ingesting smart contracts now. So here you can see on the roadmap, we have Genesis Mint, and then we have the recurring egg airdrops. So those are going to take place over the course of, a month or so. We mentioned that they're going to be spaced out probably about every 2 weeks. So you'll receive an egg. It'll hatch about 10 days later. And then about 4 days after that, you'll be receiving the next set of airdrops. And then token launch will be in the middle of that, followed by game, which obviously everyone is looking forward to, us included. We're counting the days until that gets to come out. Okay, let's see. Question from a friend that wants to know about tournaments. What's the planning for PvP? A lot of things. We can go a lot of different directions with PvP, and we would like to go all of the directions with PvP. So very fundamental PvP is going to be picking your target. This will be in like the alpha testing, so this will be for Genesis Champion holders only. You'll get to help us test that PvP battle system. Shortly after that, we'll be rolling out like a ranking-based PvP, and so we're going to have an algorithm that matches you up with people that are similar to your rank. If you beat them, your rank will go up. If you lose, your rank will go down. At the end of every like PvP phase or season, we'll probably have those rotating somewhere between like every week or every 2 weeks. Rewards will be rolled out based on your ranking. And then as we expand our player base, those rankings are going to turn into tiers as well. So initially it'll just be like a standard ranking, just a big long leaderboard. As tiers start to evolve, so as we start to see like some clear separation between different levels of players, that's when we'll start having a tiered PvP system where you can earn, big rewards for being the top placer in the top tier, of course. But maybe if you're kind of in that middle ground, you're better off being a top placer at the middle tier as opposed to a low placer in the high tier. So adding that tiered system helps give kind of everyone an opportunity to find their niche. That's especially important for like lower end or like newer players who may not be like competitively viable yet with their team. So having those like tier systems with rewards is going to be a really nice way to make sure that we're paying attention to our entire community and not just the high end. And then on top of that, we'd like to have like an esports competitive scene. Web3 actually makes that really easy. Most games are like PC native, and so it's really easy for us to have that integration. For that, we'd be looking at top tier tournaments. So, the best against the best kind of thing. We would do multiple stages to where you're not just using your best 4 monsters to beat every person. We would have rules, so that some dynamic like rule sets that force you to change your strategy, change your team. You can't just brute force your way through these tournaments. You're going to need to have some strategy and some like mindfulness behind your approach if you want to be like a consistent winner. And then to kind of further that, one thing that we talked about a long time ago, maybe in our first ever AMA and definitely in the community through just text, is we have a lot of inspiration from Pokemon Showdown. For those of you who haven't played it, Pokemon Showdown is like an online battle engine where you basically can run simulated Pokemon battles. Highly competitive. There's a lot of strategy involved. But one of the best things that they have is tiers. And so these tiers basically apply globally to every type of Pokemon. So in our game, what we would do is we would have different monster tiers. And so the most OP monsters would have their own tier. And then we'd have like an A tier, a B tier, a C tier, maybe an F tier. But what we would do is we would have PvP tournaments that are like A tier maximum. So all of the OP monsters in the game, you can't use them. You have to create a strategy with something that's maybe not quite as strong, something that's not used as common. That gives us a chance to reward creativity in the community, and helps people also find ways to kind of, have an opportunity to best someone with strategy and not necessarily like the strongest monster out there. That's one thing I'm really excited for in the PvP scene, and we're going to be leaning really heavy into that. It's a great opportunity to make sure that all monsters have purpose in the game. Obviously, we intend for them to be balanced to where they're all useful, but having that dynamic PvP scene is a really good way to make sure that everything is getting some level of attention. Question from ReadyMade. What will be some of your tools for tapping into community opinion, getting feedback as the project develops? Incentivized surveys, weekly or monthly AMAs, etc. Good question. So I've mentioned a lot already that I love doing these AMAs. I would like to have them as frequent as possible. While we're doing this to prepare for Genesis Mint, this is something that we're going to keep doing even after the Genesis Mint. We like talking to you guys and getting that input from y'all. And so we're going to continue it for sure. It's been really fun. And we see it as a really good opportunity to interact with you guys and to get really good feedback. So that'll be a really good tool. On top of that, we're going to be using our Mons token as a governance token. So we'll have governance protocols that let us use it for voting, get community feedback on those. That'll span anywhere from like really small things like what kind of monster do you want to see in the game next, to kind of like bigger questions like, hey, our team needs to figure out where we need to balance. Which three of these things in the PvP scene seem a little imbalanced to you guys? And then, we'll have people pick. And so that helps us kind of create some prioritization and make sure that we're listening to the community on what needs the most attention. But yeah, those are probably the two main ones. I like the idea of incentivized surveys too. That's something that we could definitely look into. Being a Web3 game and having a token allows for stuff like that. It gives you an easy way to incentivize people, I think. Okay. Another game to be stuck bronze in. I feel you. Yeah, I've been there. Question from Ferris. How will we acquire monsters? Will you get eggs as reward or monsters? If eggs, what are the probability? And if hatched, what are the probabilities? Okay, so I'll answer that first. So we will have certain dungeons that have egg emission rates. The plan is for us to start that at a 1% emission rate. So whenever you clear the dungeon, keep in mind this is like an end game dungeon. We'll probably have egg emissions in earlier dungeons too. They're just going to be like lower. That helps us regulate it a little bit better. You don't want high egg emissions at the start of the game because then it won't scale properly with the player base. On top of that, player abilities would scale far too quickly for the game itself. So having those egg emissions increase over time once you get to the end game, and then kind of like plateau at that end game to where it's not like a constant curve. It's essentially like as people play, they approach the end game. As you reach the end game, it flattens out so that everyone's on the same emission rate. But we'll have dungeons for that. Those will be the rune dungeons. So the ones where you gain the drops that power up your monsters will also have a chance to drop eggs. And so when you receive that egg, those eggs in particular will always be our rare eggs. So you'll be guaranteed a rare. You'll have a 10% chance at a super rare and a 1% chance at an ultra rare. So a little bit of like RNG gacha style there. That's where Zach and I have played the most games in the past, and we think that model is really good overall. So that'll be like the standard function for gaining eggs. On top of that, you'll get eggs for PvP placement, potential like PvE placement. We'll have rankings for like who can clear dungeons the fastest, or we'll have events that have like special drops, and it'll be like who collects the most drops over the course of the week will receive eggs based on that. So we're gonna have a lot of competitions that involve egg-based rewards, and that's where you're gonna be getting eggs with like guaranteed higher rarity. So not as much RNG involved, where you're gonna get like a guaranteed super rare, or in some cases like a guaranteed ultra rare. And so by doing that, we help keep the egg emissions relatively balanced with those rare eggs, but then have the opportunity to introduce higher rarity stuff like kind of at will, to make sure that we're having like some forgiveness mechanics in there as well. And yeah, Moozers is correct with the distribution. 89, 10, and 1 for the standard eggs. For super rare eggs, it'll be 90% for a super rare and 10% for an ultra rare. And then ultra rare eggs will guarantee an ultra rare. Question from Sewer Monkey: what is the end goal for price of entry? So the game will be inherently free to play. You can just hop in and play the game. The only downside is that none of your assets are going to be on chain if you do that. So we really don't have like a guaranteed price of entry, because really anyone could enter. The way that you're going to have like true entry into the game is through being an economic participant. So you would need to be buying tokens, and through those tokens, buying, selling, trading monsters, and developing your on-chain team through that. Additionally, our alliance system will come into play there. So if you're playing on-chain, you can participate in the alliance system and have an opportunity to earn tokens. But yeah, that price of entry is going to be relatively non-existent. Where it becomes important is if you want to unlock the features that are gated to Genesis champions. That's where the price of entry comes into play, and that's something that that's like the one pricing component that is not directly in our control. We don't regulate that Genesis champion economy. It's 10K supply, and that's it. So that price of entry will be dictated by you guys, the diamond-handed community. Yeah, Nikolai, good question. There will not inherently be a pity rule with the eggs. That's another example of something that we'll be launching without it, but we have the opportunity to add it if we determine that it's needed. So if we have a pity mechanic from the start, there's always opportunity that people find ways to like cheese it or get around it. And so starting without it and adding it in the future is a good way for us to balance it if we determine that it is necessary. But right now, we don't think it's going to be like a major concern, but we'll always be reviewing. And then it looks like we have one question left in the chat currently from Moozers. Will variant monsters be variant in title only or in appearance as well? Yes, variant monsters will have alternate color schemes. So you could actually describe it as a variant color scheme. So it'll use different colors and different shading than the original monster. So it'll look the same like in shape, but with regards to its actual appearance, it'll look different. We should actually make it like a public example to give pretty soon. Chelsea, if you're still around, we'll look into that. We'll see if we can leak one pretty soon for people, since those are coming up.
Yes, we have so many fun ideas for variant colors.
Yeah. You can think of them like shinies in Pokemon. We want to try not to reference Pokemon by name like too often. Just for obvious reasons. But yeah, you can think of them like shinies. They're going to be really rare. They're going to look super cool. They're going to be in high demand. So yeah, that's what those will look like. And I'm particularly excited for those because shinies were always my favorite component in Pokemon. I think it's really nice. I think it's like very attractive to have that chance at like a super. And it'll also work such that if you have like a base already, like let's say you have a Moo Sprout and you already evolved it into a Bovine, if you get a variant Moo Sprout, you can put it onto that Bovine and the Bovine will then become a variant instead. So it's not like you're going to have to start from scratch just because you got a variant. So this helps us, like, especially with like super rares and ultra rares, where people put a lot to get that to like its maximum level. it would really suck to start over just because you got a variant. That would be fun for us because we're kind of like mean to y'all if we do that. But we don't want to do that to you guys. And so, yeah, you'll be able to tack your variant on top of a completed version of the monster, and it'll turn it into a variant instead. And then also a reminder that variants will be gated to on-chain eggs only. So that's going to be an enabler for the key system to make sure that it's well integrated into our economy, and to make sure that we're also retaining the earning potential in our game to those people who are economic participants. So anyone that has keys, is participating in our economy willingly, and not just like, joining on an alt, like a free to play, like getting around the system for that. It's important to us that we have an economy that's bringing in people, not taking out people. Okay, it looks like we're at right about an hour. We'll give people an opportunity to answer any last questions that we have, and then we'll wrap up and take any additional questions just through the chat. I don't think we had anyone like raise their hand and want to come up here and like talk. I know if I was in the audience, I personally wouldn't want to come up and talk, but yeah. Appreciate the compliments from you guys. I'm glad that you guys enjoy this, because I'm up here doing this because I enjoy it. So it's good that this is a two-way street. Okay, looks like Ferris might have a final question, perhaps. So we'll wait and see for that. Come on, Ferris, speed it up. You're an ambassador for us. You got to be a faster typer than this. You're gonna have hundreds of thousands of people that you got to answer questions for pretty soon. So we're gonna need you to get some speed on those fingers. But yeah, we're very excited for Mint. This has been a long time coming. What's the chance of super rare eggs in airdrop? So for the first airdrop, it's going to be entirely rare eggs. So it'll be like, you have a 10% chance to get a super rare from that. But in the later egg airdrops, like in the second or third phase of the airdrops, we are going to be including some variability in there. So a chance to receive super rare eggs, and even a chance to receive some ultra rare eggs. So we're going to be shaking it up a little bit. We think it'd be a little boring if we just airdrop rare eggs for all three series of that. So there's going to be some variability. There might even be some where we're dropping explicitly like fire eggs or nature eggs, based on what champion you own. So look out for that as well. Our eggs are a really neat lever that we can pull and mix things up for you guys. So expect some surprises there, guaranteed. And yeah, the first person with an ultra rare is going to be a legend. I'm really excited for that. Question from Runner 5 before we wrap up here. For 1 of 1, is there anything set in place? Or in theory, yeah, they could. In theory, they could be the first like 10 minted. It's going to be completely random, and to avoid people like manipulating that, these actually aren't attributed until after the closure of the mint. So we don't even know what each number is going to be until it's revealed. So when we do our reveal, we're going to press a button, and it's going to randomly distribute those across all of the minted champions. So we have no idea. There might even be like if we have any unminted champions, those could end up being the 1 of 1s. We have no control over it. Completely random. So that helps us protect us and protect you guys. Do eggs only open? Sorry, last question. Do eggs only open when you choose to open them? If so, can you hold them until more monsters come out and have the new ones obtainable through them? Or are the possible monsters from them locked at any time they're dropped and obtained? That's a really good question. So I'll double check with our developer on this, but my assumption, based on the way I've planned it, is it'll be based on when you receive that egg. Because some of these airdropped eggs are going to operate maybe differently than the ones in game. We may have some with like higher rates, stuff like that. So I think that it'll be specific to like when that egg was created. But I can follow up with you with a definite answer on that. But I would say expect it to be limited to like when the egg was obtained, as opposed to like getting an egg now and being able to open it like way down the road for a new monster. But But yeah, very, very interesting question from like a mechanical standpoint. I don't know enough about back-end programming to know how some of that works out. But yeah. Oh, and then lastly, these the airdropped eggs I think will hatch like automatically. It'll be like the champions where it's like revealed. Unless we could potentially integrate like a hatching like experience through the website. I think that's not something that's on the roadmap right now, but it's not going to be a deal where like, you know, you're in game like hatching the egg. When the game launches, that's how it'll work. But for the airdropped eggs, they'll probably just you know, get turned into whatever like on the reveal date. So everyone's will be revealed at the same time. So it's fun. It's like a little mini mint day every 2 weeks. Yeah. Okay, cool. I think that's it. I think that's all we have for this AMA today. Tomorrow's a big day. You guys better get your rest. I know I will. I'll be around. We're gonna have a lot of questions, a lot of things to answer. I'm excited for it. We're gonna have a lot of hype too. I wish people weren't like so schemy with their drop manipulation. Like it would be really fun to just have these revealed from the start, but people do such like criminal things to make sure that they get the rarest things that makes us wait to reveal. So yeah, I'm excited for Mint Day. I'm even more excited for Reveal Day. But can't wait to talk to you guys more tonight and tomorrow about it. Hope you guys enjoyed your weekend, and we will see you guys tomorrow morning. Farewell.